Every hero has 15 signature cards, so by definition, one of them has to be the worst. Welcome back to Every Hero's Worst Card, the series where Villain Theory and I talk through a wave of heroes and find out which card is each hero's worst one.
Yeah, and it's such an interesting series. The whole basis behind this, I feel like we said this a couple of times. The whole basis was to talk about cards that aren't often talked about and actually bring up some good points. So we're trying to identify the
Mhm.
worst, but then talk it up. And sometimes we do that better than other times. We're only human. But I feel like this series kind of evolved to be less about talking about, the quote unquote worst card, especially for some of these modern designs where everything is just good. It's kind of the least necessary card or the card that least fits the playstyle.
Mm.
And really kind of almost sort of break down how we think these characters work in a way. And I don't know, it's been really fascinating to me. Whenever I edit back, I'm like, we're not really talking about the worst card. We're talking about how the character works. And I don't know.
Mm.
I really enjoyed this. This is sort of the final episode, but not maybe the final episode. It's very possible we will continue this on the future, possibly on Boomguys channel, possibly not.
Mm.
We'll see how it goes. But definitely, this is kind of the final one of season one, and then we'll see what the future brings. So we've got to the end of the Mutant Trilogy, the Age of Apocalypse,
Mhm.
and I know we both have some quite strong opinions on this wave.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some spicy takes, but I actually think I'm going to predict here that we are going to agree on half of these heroes.
I think it's possible we agree on 5 out of 6 what their worst card is. I think it's
Ooh,
possible. I don't know if we will, because the last
I don't know.
two, we didn't agree on one. With the extra large wave, we had 14 heroes in a row. We've not agreed on it, which is absurd. Episode 1, we agreed on like half, I think, or at least 3 or something.
Yeah. We
Um,
we haven't agreed on any mutant cards so far, is that right?
That is actually correct. Yeah, all the whole Mutant trilogy. In hindsight,
Wow.
you think about the game very differently to me. I'm going to go down to 3.
That's true. That's true. I do. There's a few cards from the series that I still haven't lived down. RIP Captain America and Nova, but if you know,
Yeah.
you know. Well, why don't we just jump right in? And since we are here on your channel, Villain Theory, why don't you go first? Or you can defer if you don't want to go first, but lead us
Ooh.
off.
I was going to give you the first go, but since you've given it to me, I'm going to go for one that I consider safe. We're actually going to go down to Magneto, the final hero pack of the wave. Sometimes I like to go chronological. Not today. We're going
Hmm.
straight to
Hmm.
Magneto.
Hmm.
And he's such an interesting, weird hero in a
Hmm.
way. He's got all these magnetic cards, and then he's got Asteroid M. So Asteroid M is going to be my choice for his quote unquote worst card.
See, I think you probably thought this is what we're going to agree on because alter ego,
Uh,
Boom Guy hates alter ego. I am not going to say that. This one I actually
wow.
struggled with.
Okay.
Initially, Magneto for me was a hero I really didn't like very much.
Hmm.
I have grown to appreciate him a lot more, but to me, there's 2 or 3 cards that I could go with, and I thought I knew which one it is. I'm going to. All right, I'm going to go with my original pick, but Electromagnetic Blast is the one I chose.
Oh, interesting. So we'll talk through them each. So I'll talk through my one, and then we can
Yep.
talk through your one, and then we can angrily disagree. We can have a heated, debate about it, and
As we normally do.
see who gives in first. But Asteroid M, 2-cost support. It's got the magnetic trait, which is nice, and it's an ultra ego action, which you would normally not like. So I feel like wow, I really thought we were going to agree on this one. Um,
Yeah, I know you did.
but this one is shuffle the topmost magnetic card in your discard pile into your deck and heal 1 damage from your identity. And for me, for a 2-cost support, I don't know if it's doing enough because you shuffle a card back into your deck. You might not get it back this turn. You might not get it back the next turn. And there's mixed feelings about shuffling a magnetic card back into your deck because it has to be the topmost one. So you have limited control. You can control it, but it's limited. And he has this ability. We should talk about Magneto a tiny bit. He's got this
Mm.
magnetic pull in hero form where you discard from the top of your deck until you get a magnetic card. The more magnetic cards you're shuffling back in, maybe with that Ultra Ego support, as well as his Ultra Ego ability, but the support, gets the topmost magnetic card. The less cards you have to discard until you find that card and add it to your hand. This weakens his armor, which I think is a bit weird because the less cards you discard, the less stat boost you're typically going to get on average. And I just feel like it's very expensive for what is immediately only getting me 1, healing. So that's my overall thoughts on Asteroid M and why I chose it. I pass on this card so often. Sometimes I play it, but I pass on it significantly more than I would say anything else.
Mm. I find myself interesting. I don't usually go for alter ego actions, but I do find with the mutants, I really have begun to love mutant education, which is a card that shuffles other
Mm,
mutant cards back, other hero cards back in.
yeah.
And this to me is like a mutant education, and it gives you some healing, which I think is valuable.
Hmm.
And it, couples with, we talked about his hero ability. It does couple with his alter ego ability, which is when you flip, you're going to shuffle more cards in. So you're shuffling a lot of cards back in again, which I appreciate. And I do like that since he's so focused on his magnetic cards and getting them into his hand, shuffling one back in means you're right. You don't know exactly when you're going to get it, but you will get it
Yeah.
because he pulls magnetic cards all the time. So I find myself playing this more than I typically would. And I find that the mutants have a fair amount of stuff to do in alter ego, so I find myself flipping with this wave more than I do with earlier waves. So this is one that I don't play all the time, but I will play it pretty
I'm
regularly.
I'm excited by what I hear because what I'm hearing is Boom Guy's coming around on Ultra Ego stuff, and
He is.
wh-
He is.
whether we go with this card or not, I feel like I've won. I'm
Well,
kidding,
don't take
but
your victory lap too soon. Let's do the rest of the ways. Yeah, so that's where I land on this one.
okay.
So for me, there was a number of contenders, and the very very close second to electromagnetic blast was Magneto's helmet, which I also think is not great. But I didn't pick that one. I ultimately picked electromagnetic blast because it is such a situational card. The kicker is awesome when you get it, but it is not that often that
Hmm.
you have it, right? 2 for 3 thwarting is just not great from a hero card,
Nope.
and, if the kicker is there, it's fine. You can spend 2 for 3, and if you can finagle it so you clear the scheme, then yes, discarding an attachment is great. But there's a lot of villains that don't have attachments or don't have that many attachments, so they're not always out, and then it's like 2 for 3 is like, not awesome, when often you can do that with your basic because you're gonna get +1 to your stats every turn, basically.
Hmm.
So then it feels like I just rather this should be doing more thwarting or should be doing something else. I don't know. So this one is a miss for me, and I end up passing on it a lot because I can probably play something else and do that much thwart with my basic. So that's why I picked it.
Gotcha. That all makes sense to me. I mean, I really like the hero action and hero response. I don't know what these days what your like multiplayer ratio like games is, but playing it 2 player, I feel like I see a good amount of these attachments and things. And Sunfire is so good, always taking human aggression. This is kind of like the Sunfire of thwarting events in a way,
Mhm.
and I just find it so convenient. And I feel like Magneto is so rich. If I have to overpay with it, if it's just thwarting, I don't mind too much. So that's kind of my counter argument, but I don't disagree with anything you said. If there's no attachment, this card feels like, maybe like a core set basic card. It's like for Justice without the kicker. It's,
It's
um
yeah. I mean, it's usually worse than for Justice because at least for Justice has a kicker that you can control.
mm.
It's like, oh, I can get 2 for 4, whereas this I can't get more thwarting. I just discard nothing.
I
Um,
wonder if they ever do this. This great crazy speculation. Will they ever do something like one way or another, like a minion summoning card, but it's like for attachments? That could make it better.
that could be interesting.
But
That would make it a lot better.
that doesn't exist right now.
Does not exist at the time of recording, and I do find that Magneto has a bunch of that stuff that's very situational like
Yeah.
that, and then when it hits, it's awesome, but when it doesn't, like Magnetic Missile, for example, that's just like
Yeah.
a dead card a lot, and
Yep.
that was a contender for me, to be honest, but the fact that if you can hit it, it's so good,
Mhm.
um, I don't know, I feel like I draw that card a lot instead too. I think he has a kit that is interesting, but, is kinda hit or miss for me.
Yeah, I feel like he's like quite rich and quite able to do a lot, but it's not always going to line up. That's like the big downside, which I feel like you kind of summarized already. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't dislike electromagnetic blast. I also think the helmet, as you said, I've had people like say they swear by this helmet, and I think it depends how many status cards the villains have because it goes steady. But for me, it's very expensive. For basically,
It's very
it's
expensive,
basically extra, but it's his own thing, and it's
but worse.
yeah, it only works for magnetic cards, but it does give steady, but it only works for magnetic cards. Um,
Yeah, I find steady I don't know, steady that important really. I find it's not often that big of a deal, especially with a character who can ready basically every turn
yeah,
for free. Like, how important is it really? I don't know. That's just
yeah,
me.
no, I agree. Um, so
I would go with either one of these, to be honest. Um,
We also have the rare
If you
option, which I've become more aware of the last couple of episodes, where if we each have a different pick, but our like second choice is the same, maybe we should consider the second choice. I don't know if that's
is your
cheating.
second choice the helmet?
I think my second choice is the helmet.
Yeah, it was a very close second for me.
Mm.
I almost as I were sitting here, my notes had electromagnetic blast, and I was just like, is it the helmet though? Maybe." And I went with the one I had written down, but I I would pick the helmet over, the base, to be honest, his alter ego action.
I
Moon base or whatever it's called.
I think I picked the helmet over the base as well. So I mean, I guess we both prefer the base to the helmet to the base. So I'm gonna softly push for the base, the Asteroid M,
Okay,
to, but I'm not.
I will allow it.
Okay. Oh,
Let's go with Moonbase. Alter ego actions. I have a reputation to live up to, villain theory. So everyone knows I hate alter ego
Mm,
and resource cards that don't count against your hand size.
mm,
Also a big minus for me.
yeah.
So let's go with that.
I will say I don't think he has a bad card. So it might be his quote unquote worst, but I still don't think it's bad. It's just not
No,
as up to a level as I feel like I get from the other ones. But yeah, okay, cool. We got the first one down.
first one done. Who's next?
That would be your decision.
I kind of want to go in reverse order now. So why don't we just go backwards through? Or I'm gonna start this and see if you continue it. So I will go with Nightcrawler next, since he was the second to last released.
Okay. We have Nightcrawler, Kurt, how do I say it? Wagner. And
Wagner. No.
yeah, I'm curious to see which one of these you went with.
Yeah.
I'm
So
slightly worried.
you're slightly worried. I think we're gonna line up in this one. I picked the chapel, Kurt's chapel.
You picked a card that you got to reveal?
I did. Yeah. Thank you for that shout out, Villain Theory. Yeah.
Y-
Boom guy got to reveal this card with Tony Fanchi in the episode. Actually,
And now you're choosing it.
sorry, Tony. Sorry, Tony. I wish you had brought a better card. Just kidding.
I don't think
Love
he
you, Tony.
designed this one, if I remember correctly. I feel like this was a Caleb hero. Um,
Yes, it was.
but so I'm going to be honest. Going to keep it make it nice and easy. I did pick the chapel as well. I'll let you talk about it, but I have some thoughts and opinions.
Well, I hope so. That's the series.
Imagine if I
I
didn't.
think the additional recovery is something that's not always needed. I find with Kurt, I don't end up taking that much damage.
Hmm.
I do like him in a number of aspects. I think he's really fun in aggression.
Hmm.
I think his natural home is kind of protection. That's where I find he reminds me of Ghost Spider in that way, where Ghost Spider I think is now viable in all aspects and isn't just a protection hero.
Hmm.
But it always just feels right to play her in protection, and I
Yeah.
feel like Kurt is the same way. Kurt works in other aspects as well, but I think he just feels best in protection. So when I'm playing protection, I don't always need that additional recovery. With cards like Dr. Sinclair, now that plus one recovery may be used in other ways than just basic recovery, and that's cool.
Hmm.
Um, I like that it can give out card draw, but that card draw is linked to the basic recovery, which means you have to flip down and recover for a protection hero, even if you're not in protection. For one that wants to be defending with BAMF, that isn't you don't really want to be an alter ego because that kind of negates the big part of BAMF. So you don't want to flip down that often. So then you end up not giving that card draw out very much,
Hmm.
to be honest. Um, and if you're playing defensively, right, like all those defensive events are useless if you flip down. So then kind of end kills one turn if you're playing a protection.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I landed with it. I just find it's a card that I will play because it only costs one, so you might as well just thin your deck. But even when it's out, maybe I use it once a game, and that's it.
Yeah, that sounds really familiar. Like if I play it, maybe it's once a game. I have some nicer things to say about this card, which I feel like almost like
Same.
softly contradict a couple of the things you just said. We're gonna save that for the end since we picked the same one here. But I
Mhm.
feel like I can. There's a little like silver lining to a couple of these things here. However, I think you really hit the nail on the head. He's a free defense character that can get 4 defense. That every turn, basically without fail, you can defend twice if you have to. He's got that BAMF, so he doesn't exhaust to defend.
Mhm.
So I have, basically 6 to 8 reduced damage if I'm defending, twice here on him, depending if I've got the cutlasses. Uh, I don't take a lot of damage on Nightcrawler. Um, so yeah, I just feel like everything else just does more, and it's that simple.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I wish it wasn't linked to a basic recovery.
Hmm.
If like the card draw, I mean, because that is the best part of that card. I think it's cool that you can give a card to someone else or to yourself.
Yeah.
I just wish it was, if the worded was slightly different. So it was like, when you recover health or if you heal somehow, then, you could link it to crew quarters or Dr. Sinclair or Angel's Eerie. Like if there's some other way to just like pass that out when you get health back, not just a basic recovery, that
Yeah.
would be fun.
I like the idea
But
in my head. What that made me think of is, what if it was all heroes get +1 recovery? Is that too crazy? Or 'cause that's
that's not a bad idea. That could be cool. Otherwise, I like playing with the recovery, but just not making it a basic recovery, right? Like if it's
yeah.
any time you recover, somehow you can get cards out, or you give a card to everybody. I don't know, something cool. But
Yeah.
as it is, it's written. I don't love it.
Yep. Cool. Well, we got another one down. So we did agree on one of them. So
I got
this is
one.
the
I
first
said
mutant.
three.
The first mutant we've ever agreed on.
I love it. I love it.
It just took the card that Tony brought you that you revealed. Sacrifices had to
Why
be
you
made.
just want to keep bringing that up? Okay.
It's so
Okay.
funny
All
that
right.
all the mutant heroes. That was the first one.
Yeah. Well, for Magneto, we didn't get hero cards, so we couldn't have chosen those.
We didn't get to hero cards.
Well, we got aspect cards to reveal.
No, I got to
So I
reveal the magnetic.
I didn't.
I got to reveal 2 of his ones.
Oh, no. I got the bubble. That's right.
Yeah,
What did
yeah.
you get?
I got the
Oh, you got the
combo
missile.
that wraps him in metal and then the
Yeah,
magnetic missile, which is super
that's
fun,
cool.
but it doesn't. It's not as reliable, but it is super fun. It's so satisfying.
It is fun. Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you just as you're looking through the one to pick the next one, do you often find yourself using the wrapped in metal to just like tuck away a really nasty villain, or do you use it with the intention to magnetic missile them when you can?
I think wrapping someone in metal kind of stands alone in value, and then it's going to be situational. Like if my defense is a bit low, I don't want to flip down. I'm absolutely magnetic missiling, and I do think if you've got someone wrapped in metal, the magnetic missile is really good value. So I do typically say I use it. Yeah, I typically lean toward
Hmm.
using it, but I'm not like I desperately need to use it, if that makes sense.
I love wrapped in metal just to like find a nasty villain or a minion and just leave it there. Like we can just ignore it. And then later end game maybe I can missile it to like finish off the villain, but I'm happy to just let it sit there because it doesn't do anything.
It is
Um
one of my favorite things to defeat the villain with a magnetic missile, because if you're using their own minion
mm,
as a weapon against them, that just feels
mhm,
somehow even more personal than, like, the mind control cards or the redemption cards we just got with Show of Empathy. It feels somehow feels more
mhm.
disrespectful to wrap them in metal and send them back with force. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As
Yeah,
opposed
I love
to
that.
yeah. But I think I made my decision on which one to go to next.
Okay.
I
Where are you going?
so you've hinted to me you think one of your choices might be kind of like spicy, a bit different to what I might
Yes.
expect. I'm gonna try
Yes.
and avoid the character I think that's on. So I'm gonna
Okay.
go for one where I think we might be aligned. I'm actually between 2 cards, but I think
Okay.
if we pick 2, it'll be those 2. So I'm gonna go to Iceman.
Okay, so you picked the character that I have a spicy take for. Cool.
Oh no! Okay, this is intriguing to me. I wonder what your spicy take is. If you say frostbite, which is not eligible by our normal rules, like set up and set aside, it's not typically what we go for. But if you say something like that, I don't know. I'm gonna replace you with like Lazy Titan or someone.
Well,
But he'll just pick the damage, like the non-damage cards. So I don't know if that'll work out. I'm picking first. Had to remember how the format works. I'm picking first,
yes.
and I'm not going to tell you what I'm between. I'm just going to tell you the one I'm going to choose. And the one I'm going
Okay.
to choose, I actually quite like it, but I think it is his quote unquote worst card, and that's going to be Ice Slide.
Isolate is not the card I picked.
No, it's not spicy enough. I'm curious. Spicy pick for an icy hero is kind of unusual as well. So we'll come back to this card and we'll talk about it in a minute.
Mhm.
What did you do? What have you done?
Okay, so I was between two. I picked one that I think is pretty solidly like the worst, but I'm gonna take that as my second choice because I low key think his worst card might be Frostbite.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
I'm asking. It's not a permanent, which I think was the rule.
No, it is a
It can't be a
permanent.
permanent card.
It is a permanent card.
Oh, does it say permanent
It
on it?
says permanent on it. It's set aside.
Uh,
It's not a card in your deck.
oh, it is permanent.
But I
Okay.
want to hear your
Well,
argument all the same, though, because
I can
this
give you my
is
second choice instead then. I mean, I have a reputation to live up to, right? I hate alter ego, and I have a spicy take every episode. So,
Mm.
okay, I'll let you go first, and then I'll talk about why it's frostbite.
Okay. I think you should pick another one though, like because Frostbite's against the rules. But I want to hear your reasoning
Okay,
for it, if that makes sense. So do you want to pick?
okay. So
Do you want to pick
then,
your actual one, like for this?
ice wall is the one
Okay.
that I pick,
Okay. Icefall was the other one.
which might be your second.
That was my
Mhm.
second one. When you said
That's my
solidly
guess.
his worst, I thought you were talking about Frozen Solid, and I was like, "There's no way."
No, that might be it's not his best, but low key is one of the best. It might be his
It's a
second best.
satisfying card for sure. I'm going to talk about
Mhm,
Ice Slide. I like Ice Slide. It's a 2-cost upgrade. He gets +1 to all
mhm,
his stats on hero side, and he gains Aerial, which is crazy. But
mhm,
some icy wings. He's just sliding in the sky. But when I saw this, and Iceman could get Aerial, I didn't lose my mind as much as Nick Fury having a flying car, which to me will always be like one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Um, I didn't know if he had that in the comics. I mean, surely he does, but like that was crazy. But like a flying Iceman, not on my bingo card. But this is really good costs for the stat boost. It's a really nice card. It's got the ice, the superpower traits, all the things that Iceman might want to see. But it's got this force response. After you go to Ultra Ego form, shuffle it into your deck. And this kind of is the, nail in the coffin here. This is it's the fatal flaw, in fact. That is the correct phrase there. Because you get that obligation, you got to go Ultra Ego. There's no real way around it. You are just gonna slowly like defeat yourself if you don't. But
mhm,
also they gave him this nice alter ego ability,
mhm,
um, which can get you your cards back in your deck. It starts to make his cryokinetic perception more reliable to ready you,
mhm,
stuff like that. And I think Ice Slide has this text after you change the alter ego, shuffle it into your deck. So you lose it, but it's going to be in your deck. And I think that's meant to be kind of like a you lose it, but you can get it back kind of thing. But to me, it's just going to clog up my hand or something that it's probably going to disappear again by the end of the game. So
mm.
I don't know if I took that as they interpreted as a second chance to get it back kind of thing. So those are my general thoughts on Ice Slide. I like it, but the fact that going Ultra Ego melts it, I do not like.
Well, anybody who listens to the winning hand knows that I like to go on tangents and have hot takes. So I'm gonna have a hot take on this card. I really, really dislike characters who can get aerial that can't actually fly. I think thematically it sucks. I hate that um, Spider Ham can get it. I hate that Silk can get it. I hate that Nick Fury can get it. I think that cheapens aerial for like what it is. I don't mind Iron Man, right? He could pay to get it. That's fine. But I wish it was reserved for characters who can actually fly.
I'm
Like that, I think makes it a trait that's more fun.
yeah.
Like I don't like that Silk can get it for swinging really high or whatever, and Spider-Man can. Then why can't Spider-Man get it? Why isn't just everybody aerial then? If you can just jump really high, why isn't Hulk aerial? I think that's bad.
I'm half with you. I want to say I like Nick Fury because his car is flying. He's actually flying properly. Like he's suspended in the air properly, right? This
Okay,
that's what I love the flying car, and I will defend it rationally or
wasn't that your
irrationally.
card?
Yeah, it was my card, but I also
Yeah, you were
genuinely
going
just
on.
love it. I genuinely just love that card. I think it's so funny. But the other ones I'm kind of with you on. Like to me, aerial means flying. If you're sliding, you're not flying. Um,
Right. If you're swinging, you're not flying.
yeah, that's exactly it. So I agree on that front. And it's interesting that Spider-Man, like Peter Parker, I think one of his like original designs, he's got like this little web glider, which kind of would have made sense. I think
Hmm.
maybe Spider-Woman has something like that for her temporary aerial. Like that sits a bit better with me. But if you're swinging, you're not flying. That's how I see it. So I
Yeah,
agree
Spider
mostly.
Woman, I'm okay because she's like gliding, so I feel like, and you only get it for the phase, right? So you just temporarily get it. She's gliding, and like
Mm.
I can kind of see the theme there. But to me, it's a big thematic miss when someone like Iceman, who does not in any way, shape, or form fly, has aerial.
He can play the flying formation card and rate himself, but he's not flying.
I hate that. So okay, so let's say it's fine. Setting aside the aerial stuff, I do like the stat boost. I think this card's actually fun. I think if you time it right and you flip down when you have sufficient frostbites in play, then you're going to shuffle a bunch of cards in. This could, if you shuffle 3, 4 cards in, you might get this one. You're shuffling a ton of cards. That makes Cryokinetic Perception, which is his best card, really
Hmm.
reliable because you're going to get it right back. I don't mind that. It's not one I play all the time, but it's one that I will play fairly consistently when it comes out. As someone who likes
Okay.
his basic activations too. So
Right.
I actually would push back against Ice Slide, but let me talk about why I think it's the Ice Wall, or do you want me to tell you first why it's actually low-key Frostbite?
Everybody's waiting to hear about Frostbite. You've got to have a good one for this.
Here's the thing with Frostbite. It is just good. It only works, right? It doesn't work on his thwarting. So you only get it when you attack and defend.
Yes.
The worst part of it is as soon as the enemy activates, it goes away, which means if you defend, you essentially are just wasting it. It's just +1 defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
It effectively works out. -1 attack is basically effectively the same as +1 defense. And then it goes away, and then you're exhausted and you can't put more out there. What I think Frostbite really needs to make Iceman sing is that it stays in play for the round or the phase, right? So you're not disincentivized to basic defend, because this disincentivizes you to basic defend and basic thwart. You're basically incentivized to only basic attack because of how Frostbite is. Because if you defend, it's gone right away. If you thwart, you don't get one. So you have to eat attacks to the face or ready yourself a ton, which is not super easy, to be able to use it on your basic attacks. So I think the way it's written means that his 2 basic powers are effectively useless because you want Frostbites in play, which means you have to basic attack. So that's why I think it is his worst card. Low key.
Yeah.
But
I don't think
ahead.
you're crazy.
But
Well, to me, I think depending on the sequencing of events, you can kind of stack it up, right? Because if you stun the villain or if you have frozen solid, you can kind of maybe get 2 free frostbites on the villain, and that kind of defends for you, that kind of thing. But I agree. I don't like defending at the best of times. Although Iceman is good at it because the timing basically means frostbite is +1 defense for him. It's effectively how it works out if he basic defends. I like to attack, and I like to attack so his snow clones can hit where they need to hit without melting. Just all his stuff works a little bit better. Arctic attack, or if I'm in multiplayer, I can have ice blast hit the minions for 2 players. Little things like that. So I get what you're coming from. I feel like there's a playstyle difference here though, because you like the ice slide, which to me probably means you go Ultra Ego less than I might with Iceman. And Frostbite lowering scheme, particularly like steady and stalwart villains, I think is a really nice like advantage to it. So that's my biggest kind of counter argument. But there's kind of an awkwardness to it that I agree with.
I think if it stayed in play for the phase, you would be much more incentivized to basic defend and then still flip down to get advantage of his alter ego. And then I think it would feel more thematic, right? Like I hit you, and so you have the frostbite on you for the phase, and then all his cards still work. Like his Arctic Blast works better if there's already a frostbite on you, but if I basic defend, there's a frostbite off of you because I've defended and it left right away. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, Frost, the Ice Blast does put one on the villain for you, I think, and it's like the phase thing is difficult because you defend in the villain phase, but the hero phase it's kind of gone. But it's difficult if it stays there because if it just helped everyone the entire time, it's going to be like a huge advantage. Cool. It's cool, but it's very powerful.
True.
I don't know. It's got an awkwardness though. I agree with like where your frustrations with it come from. So I'm less upset with you than I thought I was going to be. I feel like I was going to have a really strong reaction, but like, it kind of makes sense. All
right. Well, let me talk about Ice Wall, which is the one I actually picked because ice or frostbite's against the rules. So Ice Wall is my first note in here about it is all caps. This is so expensive.
Yes.
So spending 4 for a hero that has economy issues, to put it gently, is just very difficult to justify. You're spending your entire hand on a card that is no immediate impact, and it can have good delayed impact. I think in multiplayer this is fun, but in multiplayer often it's then gone by the time it comes back to me. So I've spent 5 resources to put a card out that may do nothing for me because if I'm the 4th player, the first player got to take advantage of whatever frostbites were in play and the ice wall. Second player probably got the ice wall, and then the ice wall might be gone at that point, but comes back around to me. I think it's a lot to invest in a solo game. Maybe it's more worth it. In a 2-player game, maybe it's more worth it because you're going to get more benefit, but you're spending your whole hand. That's my entire turn, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to say, cool, my turn. drop my hand, ice wall, done. Like that is a rough. I don't know. I think it's so expensive. I think you want to play it at the right time to get as much out of it as you can. There's certain villains like Ronin or playing the really hard ones or Juggernaut. You just might one attack and it's gone, which is like, then I'd rather play Mockingbird or something who's cheaper and gets the same basic effect out, which is preventing one attack.
But she can defend again, so she's kind of like double the defenses if that's the case. If Ice Wall just gets destroyed.
That's true. So that in that case, to me, it does have the ice trait. So, you can make it a little cheaper if you have team building exercise, which often feels like
mandatory.
Iceman's 16th card.
And 17th for me, if I'm honest. I often run like multiple of those. Because every card
I usually run 2 copies of it.
Yeah.
Because I want to get one in as quick as possible, and you can might as well get 2 into play. Yeah, Iceman has become one of my favorite heroes. He's probably top 10 for me. But a lot of his builds feel kind of samey. Because I feel like 5 to 10 of his cards that you add in are always the same. So I don't experiment with different builds, but I have a few builds that work for him and really enjoy them. So
that's so funny.
This is one to me. Go ahead.
I gotta say, it's so funny to me. He's like one of your top 10 heroes, you said, but you don't like Frostbite, which is his main mechanic that he revolves around.
I am a man of contradictions.
You are complicated. You are complicated. You are a mystery wrapped in an enigma. But
yes, you're British of you.
I don't think you're crazy, but for Ice Wall, this was my second choice. So I think it's probably the choice we're going to go with, because you said you're going to push back against Ice Light. Went with my one with the first hero with Magneto. So I'm happy to go with this, and we can save the nice things. So do you think there are some nice things and good things you can do with it for the last half?
Yeah, then let's go with Ice Wall. I'm happy to go with that. Yeah. So we didn't agree, but
I was close. I was close on it. I was really 50-50 before we started recording. I was like, which one am I going to go for? I think it's this one, but it could be this one.
Or it could be Frostbite.
No, absolutely not. There's kind of an awkwardness to Iceman's kit, which I think stems from Frostbite, but it's not Frostbite itself, if that makes sense. I don't know. It's a whole thing. Iceman is probably, people when I reviewed Iceman, they were shocked, because I'm normally super positive about all the heroes, because I genuinely like all the heroes. And I actually skipped my main review for Deadpool, who didn't gel with me either. So they didn't get to hear it about that. So suddenly Iceman, and people are like, whoa, what's this? This is so harsh. I'm like, if I don't like something, I do say it. But Iceman has grown on me a little bit. I think I've just had to relent on sort of, quote unquote, my usual difficulty. I find if I play him and things are a little bit more relaxed, he can kind of breathe a bit. Some of his money issues don't matter as much, and he can kind of fulfill the game plan. I do actually really like the whole Frostbite mechanic in a lot of ways. So it's kind of an idea I hope they revisit somehow. These attachments that you can kind of build up. I've always kind of wished that, you got 3 Frostbites on them. You can play Frozen Solid for free. Like something happens or they detonate. There's like some kind of reward for having multiple on there that's like tangible and impactful. Not just, if you flip down, you shuffle a little bit more into your deck. I wanted something meaty to happen when I got enough on there.
Yeah, I think to me, Iceman feels like a hero that needs a little more time in the oven. I think he has some really cool ideas, but I think it just needed a little more tweaking. It's not quite there. I think the Frostbite is awkward. I think some of his cards are really cool. Like Cryokinetic Perception is an awesome card. But some of them, just like the Ice Wall, is just like, really? We decided to make this a 4 card? Like, I don't know. And he has 2 signature allies. I'm like, okay. I don't know. I think he needed a little more time, but I think he's like almost there. I think, to me, if Frostbite just stayed for the round, that would help a lot, because it would mean I could basic defend and then count on there being a Frostbite there to make my other cards sing or flip down. I just like falling off immediately just like irks me. And so the more I've played him, and I do think there's a thing where he kind of wants to defend for the table, but I think the more players there are, the more awkward his cards become. Weirdly.
I'm one of those people that doesn't like to defend for the table with him. Actually, I'm a little bit different. Maybe that's why I like Ice Light a bit less too.
It becomes less like Frozen Solid becomes. I mean, it's always good, but like the more players there are, the less you can rely on it. Like in a solo game, it's just like amazing.
Yeah.
In a 2-player game, it's really good. By the time it gets to 4-player, like, yeah, you play it and it's good for someone, but then it's, I don't know. I think he gets diluted the more there are. So
no, that's fair enough. So now it's your pick for the next character.
Well, you've ruined the backwards thing I wanted to do.
I
So
wanted
I'm
to
gonna save the box heroes.
I wanted to pick Jubilee, but I thought
I'm
that's gonna
picking
be the
Jubilee.
one you had the crazy take on. I really thought it was,
No,
so
no, you thought this was gonna. I'm curious what card you thought I was gonna pick for Jubilee. That would be crazy.
we're going for Jubilee,
Yeah, let's go Jubilee.
okay, okay,
Jubilation Lee.
yes. And
Um,
it's you first. So what are we going to go with? We need to agree on 2 out of 3 of the remaining ones to have our prediction met. I'm curious how that goes.
I know that one of them we are gonna lock in on. Like I know one of the box heroes. I promise we have the same one.
Okay.
Um, one of the box heroes I'm not so sure about. I will say so before I say the card here, I will say that Jubilee has become a favorite of this wave for me. So like her and Iceman my two favorites from this wave and are very high up for me in overall heroes. I think Jubilee is
Wow.
really, really fun. I think Jubilee's gimmick of paying essentially wants to pay expensive events and wants to pay different resources. I think that's really fun. And I think that is like Miss Marvel, an ability that's going to grow as the card pool grows. I think this is a really cool ability. With that said, one of them just feels worse than the others. And I'm going to say it's Blinding Flash.
Okay, so Blinding Flash is your choice. Not what I saw you going for. So this was, in some ways, a spicy pick, but not in the way I expected it to be. So
Okay. Okay.
I'm intrigued.
What do you think I was going to pick?
I thought you were
What's the
gonna go
spicy?
crazy and pick the shopping spree. I really thought this was a Boom
Ooh,
Guy pick. This has Boom Guy all over it. It's like a special setup
it
thing.
was a contender.
I knew
It
it.
was a contender.
I knew it.
Yeah. Probably second.
I can see why it would be because in solo in particular, particularly depending on the deck, it can be very frustrating. It's very slow to like you have to get it, and if oh my god, if it's in your opening hand and you can't do the setup, it's so annoying. But then you have to like it takes a
Mhm.
couple turns to pay off. And it's a bit
Mutant
weird.
Education's great for it.
Yeah, but I love it. Like the 2-player plus, this card just is incredible.
Yes,
So it.
agreed.
I actually did consider it myself, but like the multiplayer use of it, too good. So I'm gonna go for another one. Then
So
we
let
can.
me
Oh,
let me hold on. Let me just tell a quick story here. Again,
okay.
if anybody listens to Winning Hand, they know they're used to this. I went to the Con of Heroes this year, and I played with somebody who brought a Jubilee deck, and the Jubilee deck was built around Shopping Spree and providing items to other players. So I sat down at the table with her, and she said, "I have this Jubilee deck. It's just built around abusing Shopping Spree." And she pulled out a piece of paper that had every hero printed and which items they had and how many they had. So she was like, "Pick a hero. Like if you have any of these, pick one that has a lot of items." But she had the list, so if you just knew what heroes you brought with you, you know which ones are items because it's not always clear what's an item. She was like, "Pick," and I was like, "Great." So I picked Vision. He has 2 items. Cool. One of them is what we picked as his worst card, but hey, whatever. It's 2 items. So anyway, that was a really cool experience. Shout out to you if you're watching or listening. But that was really awesome that it was like built around multiplayer and like here's all the characters have items. Like let's make this really cool. So anyway, go ahead.
No, I like that. I love the teamwork aspect you can do with it. So I'm gonna go for mine now. And I
Mm,
struggled with this. I
mhm,
looked at all her
mhm.
cards, all her events, her resources, and I guess it can't be any of these things, surely. Although debatably now it's Blinding Flash. But I ended up kind of by default going for the signature ally Wolverine. And I want to stress I don't think this is a bad card. I do not think this is a bad card. But I think it's a bad card for Jubilee, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
So I am willing to explain it and defend it, but first
Yeah,
it's
I'm gonna have to hear this. This is interesting.
so I had the spicy take for this one after all, maybe.
I don't know. I think, yeah, well, we'll see. So let me talk about Blinding Flash. Blinding Flash is an expensive card, which she likes generally. But you don't really get any damage or thwarting from it. You just stun, which I love the thematics of the card. I love the art on the card, but it only works in like a scenario with a lot of things that you can stun. Otherwise, you're spending 3 to just stun the villain, and then why am I not just playing Tackle or Mockingbird? I just find this to be underwhelming, and a lot of the times I don't really care about stunning minions that much. Like there has to be a minion that's scary enough that I want to stun and isn't just going to get killed. Like most minions come out and they immediately get steamrolled. So you have to have a big one out that's maybe tough or has a lot of hit points. I just find that often isn't the case, and so I draw into this, and it's like cool, I could spend 3 to stun the villain, but, like, then why didn't I just play Nightcrawler or, Mockingbird?
Well,
So,
I
yeah,
I, I want to say this card stuns and confuses the villain, so it's not just the one status card you're getting on the villain there.
fair, fair, but yeah, I still find it to be just a little underwhelming for me.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough. I get it. I mean, I did look at this card. I looked at all her cards. It's like, what am I going to pick here? Um, I don't know. I like this. I'm willing to defend it. There is a 2-cost card which can stun and confuse the villain called Pheromones on Spider Woman, and it has quite the reputation of being very effective. This is just one more
I think if this just had
cost.
the, like, attack or thwart, you know, signifier, like you know, after hero
So
action, if
it
it had, like, the
triggers. Okay, so it triggers
yeah,
her
so it triggers
upgrades.
her stuff, then it's
Mm,
gonna be like, "Okay, then I'm gonna stun and confuse, but also get some damage or thwart out of it."
hmm.
Cool, but as it is, like, it doesn't, so I don't know.
Right. My defense of it will be that she's a 9 hit point character, and if you don't have status
Yes.
cards lined up, or if you can't get rid of that minion, it becomes kind of dangerous. So I like Blinding Flash in that respect. I like it for multi-villain scenarios. I like it for the vulnerable stuff in Agents of Shield. Um, so I think,
But she already has so much status in her kit.
but she has the flash of light to confuse an enemy, but for Firecracker you have to damage the enemy then stun it. So and Blinding Flash can like hit multiple, right? If they're a multiplayer, I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
I I like
This is a tough choice. I think it's a solid event, like, it's just a lot
mm,
of good cards.
yeah, I
So, tell me about Wolverine.
I agree. I feel like Blinding Flash is less crazy than some of her other stuff. Like I genuinely struggled for her. Um,
I did.
Wolverine is a great ally. I'm just going to tell you this is a good card. It's 4 cost, which
It's a good
is
card.
expensive, but he attacks for free, and you can like keep healing him. And he's got piercing, which is sometimes it's useless, but often it's really useful. Like when it's useful, you notice it, and it feels really good to just carve through that
Mhm.
tough card. Um, so I don't have anything bad to say about the card, but I have bad things to say about how it works with Jubilee. If I have one of her
Mm.
upgrades down, I want to play an event. And like you say, the more expensive it is, the more rewarded she gets. If I have both upgrades down,
Mhm.
I want to play 2 events. This 4-cost card, she doesn't have the money problems that Iceman does. She has more money, but this 4-cost card is still going to eat up a large amount of the average turn, the average amount of money you have. So it's likely that your upgrades are not fully firing when you're playing Wolverine.
Mhm.
And that is kind of the big critique here. I think if she didn't have the signature ally, how often is she going out of her way? Okay, maybe team up cut aside, to get the aggression Wolverine ally, which this is basically a copy of. It's very slightly different. It is
Mhm.
meaningfully different,
Yeah.
but it is also the same. Um, I don't think she's particularly inclined to go for it. The team up card is a thing. Maybe we'll talk about that at the end if we choose.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure. Maybe you want to use it in its defense. But for me, it's not enough, and this is just an awkward card for Jubilee to be forced to bring with her.
I don't disagree with a lot of what you said. I think it is just a copy of the aggression one. The fact that I think it works within the ecosystem of so many X-Men things, right? Because you can exhaust Jubilee to pay for one of the 4. Utopia will immediately ready Jubilee. So it's effectively you could get a 1-cost discount often. So it becomes a 3-cost ally. I do think the piercing helps you with the attack card she has, which means you have to damage. So that carves any tough cards you might have. I do think that he's somewhat awkward for her in that he's so strong that you would never want to chump with him, which is often what I find Jubilee needs because she's a little
Mhm.
squishy. So if there's no status out, I need to block. But do I really want to block with my 4-cost like self-healing ally?
No.
No. So then you're kind of stuck. She does have 2 defense, but defending effectively also costs her a resource. We have to consider that too. So basic defending kind of sucks.
I'm gonna put it out
So
there that I like her upgrades to give her a stat boost. I love getting like +1 fort on her, and I would rather fort or attack with her as well sometimes. And she almost
yeah,
always has an upgrade out, so
she does. I don't disagree that I think you are kind of coming around to the boom guy thought, where it's like this is a good card, but in the context of the rest of her cards, this doesn't fit. Like it doesn't quite work with what she wants to do. Um, and so I don't think this is a crazy pick. I think he is one that I considered, but then I got stuck, I think, looking at the card in tunnel vision. I was like, this is not a bad card. Like, I can't.
mm.
This is not bad. But then when you consider all the rest of it, it's like, well, he's not an item, so I can't grab him. He's not an event, so he doesn't trigger my upgrades. Like, what is he really doing that works with the rest of my kit? Nothing,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. Like he's thematic. Like he's extremely thematic. The aggression ally is well designed. This is, very much a spin-off of that ally. So it's really fun.
Mhm.
Um, for me, there's two different things. There's a card in their kit which doesn't really work with their kit, but it's affordable and they can kind of do their game plan around it and still play it. I don't mind that. For me, Wolverine
Mm.
is interrupting. It not just doesn't interact with the game plan; it's kind of interrupting the game plan. Is my big thing here.
Yeah, I think she would have worked better with like the Colossus ally from Magic, right? Because she needs that defense, and so I kind of feel like putting him into play like that with the tough card and eating it, like he needs some. She needs someone that's a little more defensive than Wolverine,
Mm.
who's like here for aggression, which is cool, but doesn't save her 9 hit points.
I quite like that she has Wolverine, but what if it's like a 2-cost Wolverine that has a different design? Because it's basically just the aggression ally as a signature ally. Like kind of, I feel like they could have interpreted it differently somehow. I
Yeah,
don't know. So I feel fairly strongly. I consider Wolverine worse than Blinding Flash, but you might think differently. Blinding Flash, I don't think we talked about this, but against Stadium Stalwart, suddenly that's losing a lot of value as well. So I can see that argument.
I mean, against
So
City and Stalwart, it's kind of a worthless card. No, I mean, it does nothing
yeah,
else. It doesn't trigger my upgrades. So for me, it also did feel like I think we've both identified the two cards that don't really work with her kit, right? Blinding Flash doesn't trigger her upgrades, which is kind of her main thing, right?
hmm
You really want to be hitting those high cost events that trigger those to get the bonuses. Wolverine also doesn't interact with those two really core pieces of her kit. So in that sense, I think we've identified the two cards that don't fit here, but maybe Blinding Flash fits a little better because you can get some status which can help protect her.
it also works for the
And
different resource thing going on, so it kind of rewards leaning into that a bit.
yeah, yeah. No, I think I can go with Wolverine. I think for her, I agree that Wolverine might be the worst because it doesn't fit or synergize with her kit.
I cannot tell you how relieved I am that we're going for this. I don't know.
And I'm big on synergizing with the kit. I've always said that.
I just like
That was my
blinding.
whole argument.
I think I've had some really good experiences with Blinding Flash. One of my first few games of her, the first game I recorded with her actually was against Four Horsemen, and I got it like turn one, and I stunned and confused. Like it was just a lot of status that really really helped, and its highs are very high, I guess. But
I mean,
cool,
with vulnerable, I think this just gets even better.
yeah.
Like, there's a bunch of vulnerable, but it means you can clear the board, and that's amazing. Then it's just an
Mhm.
AOE attack essentially
Also,
without attacking.
Thunderbolts. I just had that thought. They're kind of a new thing that's very prominent, at least at the
Mm.
moment, and that's good
Hmm.
for putting those out of commission for a turn or two.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Wolverine synergizes least with her kit, so I'd go for that.
Cool. So we're going for Wolverine. I think that leaves us with the box, and I think it's your
It
choice.
does.
Oh no, wait, it's my choice where we go in the
No, your
box.
choice.
Oh,
Yeah,
the
you pick one.
pressure.
I We have to agree on both of these to hit my prediction.
I think
I
you
think one of them is
think I'm gonna go for one card, and it's gonna easily be that card, and I think I like that card
yes.
more than you'd imagine. Let's do that now. I think that's Bishop. I think that's
I
Bishop.
think it's Bishop. I think it's Bishop.
So people on my Discord server like to discuss, oh, what are we gonna pick? Who are we gonna pick? And a few people picked a certain card here, and my immediate reaction was, "This is a good card. I like this card. I use this card."
Oh no.
That card is Malcolm.
Oh no.
That card
Oh
is
no.
Malcolm. However, I then proceeded to look through his cards, look through his cards, and look through his cards, and I'm like, it's got to be Malcolm. So I am choosing Malcolm for Bishop.
I also choose Malcolm.
I
Yeah. I thought this was a
I
pretty easy one.
I knew you'd go for this. For me, I like Malcolm, but the thing is, I really like everything else Bishop has even more. It basically by default, this one stood out as actually being quite easy in hindsight. Um, but I've got good stuff out of Malcolm. I guess I get to talk.
Save that for the good part.
Yeah.
Save that for the next section
Mm,
of the video where we talk about good stuff.
mm.
Let's just say, why did you end with this as his worst
But
card?
I want to defend him. But yeah. So the reason I said he's the worst card, and probably the reason you did, is kind of what I just said in a way. Everything else is so good to begin with. Like everything is so good. I wouldn't touch anything. So I kind of ended up left with his signature allies, and typically attack less valuable than fording. And that's basically the gist of it. I want to say good things, but he's just the least necessary part there, especially because Bishop's uniform and his starting hit points of 12 and his 4 recovery. Bishop is kind of tanky. Energy conversion as well in a weird way does block damage. Sometimes you would take 3 damage anyway, but that's a different story. Bishop doesn't really need to chump block. Bishop doesn't want to chump block, so allies kind of lose their integral value with him in another way as well.
Mm. I don't disagree with that. I think the game has just taught us, right? Thwarting is more valuable than attack. That's
Hmm.
how everything is costed. So if you have two allies, they're basically identical except for that, then that one is worse. I agree that his allies are the worst part of his kit, or the least essential. I will also say one of the things that really bothers me about these is that to ready them, right, you have to spend the resource, but it has to have a printed resource, which means you
Yes.
are always overpaying. You're always spending two resources to ready it because there are no resource cards with a printed one resource of that kind. So you're always either spending one of the three basic doubles or one of his signature resource cards, and spending two resources to ready an ally, like, yikes. I don't know. That's just not very good, especially one that only has these two attack, one thwart.
I
Um,
I have a defense for this, but we'll save the good stuff for the end. But I have a defense for it, but I also agree.
yeah, it just the fact that it has to be printed means you're always spending two to ready them, and that's just
Yeah.
not good.
Yep.
And like you said, he doesn't need the defending. So actually, he would rather not, quite frankly,
Hmm.
chump because he wants to use a uniform. So I don't know.
Okay.
This is pretty easy for me.
Yeah, it's easy for me in hindsight. Like, I first of all thought, like, that's crazy, but it turns out I just really like all of his cards. So, I'm
That's like all of my takes. People say that's crazy, and then they think about it, and they're like, actually, Boom Guys might be a genius.
well,
I'm used to it.
I don't know if I would say those exact words, but yeah, let's
Mhm.
go with let's go with Malcolm.
Someone said it. I heard it said. It's fine.
I think that was you.
I don't know. Let's not dwell on who said it. Someone said it. It's
So-
out there.
Somebody did.
Uh,
This means
okay.
we have
We
agreed
are on to the
on
last one.
we've agreed on 2 out of 5. To meet our prediction
Yes.
of agreeing on 3, we have to agree on the next one. And I don't know if you will have gone for what I've gone for. I feel very confident in
Mm,
what I've gone for, but I feel like you might have
mm.
gone for differently. And it's gonna have to default to be Magik. But what
It's
card?
Magic. Okay, I will just say it and then we'll talk about it. I picked Magic's crown.
Oh no. I did not go for Magic's Crown. It was a
Okay.
contender. Was a contender.
Okay.
Maybe maybe honestly it was my second choice, but my first choice was Mystical Armor. So we both went for an upgrade.
Mm. Okay. I think these were both there for me. So let me talk about why I think it's the crown. I think steady is just not always that valuable. It's the same thing we had with Magneto's helmet. It's maybe more valuable for her here than it is for Magneto, who has an automatic ready. Um, she needs a mental resource to make this work, but that's the resource she has the least of in her kit. And her thwart event is pretty good. Um, and it's the most expensive of the kit upgrades she has. So
Yeah.
that's basically why I landed on it.
Yeah. All that makes sense to me. I do find she has like good ways to manipulate the top of the ways
She
that could
does.
defend it. I think steady is very valuable in the right place. Like it does make a big difference. But this card and Mr. Climber are the 2 cards I pass on the most. Um,
Yeah.
so it's not crazy to me. If we went with it, I wouldn't hate it. But let me talk to you about Mystical
So
Armor.
tell me why it's the armor. Yeah.
So Magic has I need to talk about other cards first. Magic
Okay.
has 2 little cards, well, 2 copies of the same card called Magic Barrier, and this can
Mm,
prevent free damage and sometimes deal free damage. Then she also has Colossus, who can jump in front of an attack without exhausting from your hand or the top of your deck, as it might be, um,
mm,
and block an attack for you as well. And with a little help from Limbo, you can get a discount on doing that. With a little help from her 3 copies of Stepping Disc, you can kind of set it up to be the top card of your deck as you end the turn and get like consistent use out of it. So I feel like she has really consistent ways to set up a defense option for herself that I don't
mm,
particularly want to exhaust to defend with her. And if it's Colossus, who I think is particularly good,
mm,
the Retaliate's missing as well here. So it's almost redundant for me. You can go more defense heavy build, but you need the right thing on top of your deck. And unless you have Limbo, you have less control over that compared to the Soul Sword, the Magic's Crown, and her attack and falling events. Because you can just play things for in the player phase and cycle through it a bit, and it might line up. But in the villain phase, you have less ability to line that up purposefully, outside of
mm.
Limbo, which your Nemesis can also get. So I just find I pass on both of those cards a lot, to be honest with you. But yeah,
Mm.
do you feel swayed? Do you feel the crown still? Let me hear some thoughts.
Well, why don't you click on the card? Give us a big version of it for those watching, so they can remember what it
Look at
does.
her face; she looks shocked.
She's shocked. And what's going on behind her? Is she like on a stage? She's like, it's like lights. I don't know.
She walked into the wrong room.
Yeah. Where am I? I think a lot of what you said is true. Maybe I value the defense. I mean, this card is just cheaper than the crown. So if
Yeah.
I'm going to play something to thin her deck, it's more likely going to be this. I find that I like her in a protection build maybe more than you do. I like, a lot of those one cost defense events sitting on top of my deck is really nice because it means I'm playing them for free and I'm going to be able to trigger it. So, if I'm getting attacked and I know jump flip is on top of my deck, I can defend for 3 and then jump flip's going to come in and prevent the rest, or desperate defense, whatever. So I maybe find myself doing a little more defensive building with her, and then retaliate is nice in that case. Um, for me, really, I think that's just a playstyle thing. Like, if you prefer basic thwart or basic defense, whatever. I think ultimately it comes down. The real tiebreaker for me was it's less expensive, this one. So if I'm gonna play one, I'd probably play the one that's less expensive more than the 2-cost one that has less value. And
It's
then it's just the number of resources she has. Right? She has more lightning resources than she has mental resources. So it's just mathematics. I'm more likely, without manipulating too much, or even with manipulating, mathematically, I'm more likely to hit this trigger than I am hit the other trigger. So, but I think these are the two that I was thinking about.
okay. I'm glad we're at least close on that. Yeah, I don't dislike her like defensive stuff, but I do. I'm always leaning more towards the proactive, before the attack.
Mm.
But it does vary. What's interesting for me thinking about it is if I see one of these cards on top of the deck and I can use her ability to discount it. Quite often, I will just play the armor because it's there. I've got it. It's done. I haven't lost anything from my hand, kind of thing. It's just more convenient and flexible because it's cheaper. Whereas if the crown is on top of my deck, I'm less likely. I still have played it that way many times, but I feel like I'm more likely to play the crown if it's in my hand, and I'm more likely to play the armor if it's on top of my deck, if that makes sense. One is just more convenient with the ability than the other one somehow. I don't know if that actually makes sense,
Mm.
but that is typically how I think it plays out for me. Um, I think if
Yeah, I
night,
mean, to me, these are the top two,
yeah,
right? But the cost was a big tiebreaker for me. Like, it
mhm,
just costs one. It's just easier to play that. So I'm more likely, but I will often pass on both of them, quite frankly.
yeah.
Um,
It's gonna come down to like who blinks first, and this is the final one, potentially the final one of the series for a long
this
time.
is it.
So there's no like if one person gets it, the other person won't. Um,
And we don't have a second choice that we can easily choose because we both picked the other one as our second choice.
do you have a card that you think is like her third worst? I feel like they're all so good after this.
I think these are to me, these are like clearly the top two.
Yeah.
And then there's kind of a gap before you get to anything else. The rest of our cards are quite good.
Mm.
I didn't have a real spicy take, in classic Boom Guy style. I should have picked Scrying or something and then made some argument on why that's worse. But
If you picked Limbo,
um,
it would be over. We'll just end the video.
Colossus. No, I mean, I agree with you. I think, you're not going to basic defend a lot with her. But you also might not basic thwart a lot if she only has one base thwart. So how often are you going to use 2? I don't know. +1 gets her to 3 defense at least. Like 3 in a stat is really more usable.
It is.
Then I feel like mystical armor, then, maybe more likely to use that. But again, I don't feel strongly. I think if either of us felt really strongly about one, we would relent because I'm not
Mm.
that sold. But I think we're kind of stuck here in limbo, one might say.
That is an excellent pun. But I'm going to quickly shout out Soul Sword and why I prefer this to both
Mm,
of them. I think piercing is so
mm,
useful to attack. I like to be proactive and attack, and it works. And the amount of forwarding in multiplayer, obviously, sometimes the more you can get, the better. But in lower player counts, Colossus puts out a surprising amount of forwarding. He can block an attack, then he can forward for 2. So he kind of makes,
mhm.
in some ways, the crown and the armor less valuable because he provides it.
True.
So just putting that out there. I think because you relented for Wolverine, I can relent and go with the crown. It would be my second choice. And I don't know that in placing him on our tier list, they would be in a dramatically different place. So at the end of the day, I will begrudgingly concede.
I think if there was a one cost card that just gave you retaliate, you would happily play that in many decks. And I think that's essentially what Mystical Armor is, right? It just gives you retaliate, which is a static ability that's going to deal a little bit of damage, helps with tough cards, helps with minions, and you don't have to do anything to get it. I think that's just good.
Well, my immediate talking down on it is that Colossus can defend not just with his stuff, but with his last hit point, and then the retaliate doesn't work. But she also comes with a bunch of a few stuns. So
Mm.
the retaliates, it does happen, and it is nice, but I don't know.
I mean, if there was a basic card that cost one that gave you retaliate, would you play it?
It depends on the character. It doesn't go in every deck. I don't know if I would play it on Magic.
Because there is a
Uh,
one cost card that you can play in basic that gives you steady.
yeah, and I don't always play that on the characters that can take it. So
Or you could pay 2 for it to have it in kit here.
yeah,
mean,
but it also gives potentially +1 forwarding. So
Yeah,
it's like Heroic Intuition with bonus steady in a way, but you have to line it up so it's not Heroic Intuition.
potential heroic intuition with
Yeah.
maybe a bonus.
Well, you can normally set it up quite easy, especially if
That's true.
it's
If you build into it, right? Yeah.
yeah, it's
I think the armor is just worse. I think they're close, but I think the armor is. I mean, the crown is just worse. I think the armor.
the armor's worse. Let's go with that.
That's not what I meant.
I know. I think we're gonna have to agree to disagree, and that's kind of
Yeah.
sometimes in a team you have to
What a
compromise.
fitting way to end this series. We just can't agree.
Yeah, that sums up the mutant wave,
Whole premise
especially.
of this. Yeah.
So we agreed.
We only got 2.
We agreed on 2 out of 20 mutants.
That's wild. I feel like as the series went on, we've agreed less, right?
Yes.
Is that because the characters are getting better and there's less differentiation between cards?
Or is it because our rivalry has grown and we refuse to pick the same one? No. I think it is that the cards have overall got better, and maybe a bit more complicated in terms of the character designs as well. A bit more going on that makes it less clear cut. More factors to consider, especially with the X-Men mutants. With so many supports, so many different things that interact with them. I feel like there's more approaches, and just the game having more aspect cards and things. There's more ways to approach. From when we started the series, there's even more ways to approach those old characters now. So, I think even those might have, harder choices if we went back.
I think I'm gonna let you relent and go with the armor here, or with the crown, because I think I don't know. I don't feel that strongly about it. I think these 2 are just clearly her worst.
Yeah.
Maybe we just pick both of them and move on. I don't know.
We can't pick both. I'll go for the crown. I do pass it up a lot. So it works. That's fine.
So now it's time for us to transition to the next part of the video.
Yes, so let's hop on Iceman's
the
ice
next
slide and slide on over there.
Fly over.
Fly? I don't know about that.
On the slide.
But yeah, right, let's move on to ranking them. See you there. Okay, we're here in part 2 of this episode. This is where we get to rank these cards by saying good things about the quote-unquote worst, at least, maybe the least desirable would be more accurate phrasing for these cards. And I kind of feel like we should just fly into it. Boom guy, are you ready?
I'm ready. Flying into it. I love that. Since we flew in on the ice slide. Good one.
We slid in on the ice wings. I don't know. So anyway, I think you let me pick the first, hero we went to before. So I'm going to let you pick the first card to rank in this part. What do you want to rank, and where's it going to go?
Well, I think in the spirit of, agreement, I'm going to start with one that we agreed on. So I'm going to pick Malcolm.
Okay. And I should say to just the listeners very quickly, because it's been a while since the last episode. This is kind of a tier list we built up across the episode. So, and this is just in the context of each character's quote unquote worst, least desirable card. So I'm not actually saying these cards in S tier are like S tier overall in the game and so on, but they're S tier within this context. But sorry to interrupt. Please go on.
If you're new to this series, you haven't seen all of this and how we got to this point, you should go back and give Villain Theory some views. Make sure you like and comment. But this is kind of what we've built out for previous episodes. So where does Malcolm rank in the context of this for me? We've said before that allies are just good, despite what you see with War Machine at the bottom there. So they just have an inherent value because they can block. I think that value is lessened with Malcolm because, like we discussed about, Bishop doesn't actually want an ally to block for him. So I think that is kind of negated here, and then you're left with a 1/2 ally with 3 hit points that is very expensive to ready and kind of awkward. For me, I think I'm gonna put him in a D tier. I think he's just not a very good,
Ooh.
even in the context of allies. I
Okay.
really don't like this card. I think spending 2 to ready it is bad, and blocking with it for a character that wants to absorb damage is just bad. So I know this is where we talk about good things. So I'm not sure where he places there, but I will say positively, right? Let's just say he can be tutored with Bishop's ability. That is a good thing about him. Like if you're an alter ego, you can go get him into your hand because he's a temporal card.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a resource dump for a character that generally has too many resources. So maybe you don't
Mm-hmm.
care about spending 2 to ready something. So like
Yes.
that is true. He still only has 1/2. It's not amazing, and no other ability like piercing or anything. So I don't love it. But let's just say I think. What's the second card? Oh, that's the Psylocke card.
Weapons
These
training, yeah, and then we've got
icons are kind of
web
small.
binding. They are
Yeah,
very small now. Let's enhance a little bit, but the name's kind of cut off on some of them, so you guys are gonna need
yeah,
some good card knowledge if you don't remember what we've gone for.
yeah. I think, boy, I think I would maybe put this around the jet boots area, like in the middle. I don't think it's as bad as like the bottom cards are here. That's kind of where I'm thinking about it. As usual, I can flex
Mm.
within a few spots, but kind of in the middle of D is where I think of this. What about you?
It's interesting if we place this, based on it as a card itself or how useful it is for Bishop. Because I'm going to tell you something crazy here. I play this card almost all the time on Bishop, and I do use its action quite a lot as a resource thing. And for me, that immediately, like, I'm thinking high C tier, low B tier. Because Bishop just has money, right? So I play this
He has
card.
money. He has money.
He has money, so I just play this card. He's got money, so I will ready this character. And it's an X-Men, so it triggers Utopia and all that good stuff.
Mhm.
So for
That
me,
that
I think I use him significantly.
that is a
So
take.
so I do like Malcolm.
Yeah, that's an opinion.
It is an opinion. I don't think it's an incorrect opinion, but I think you think it's incorrect. But somewhere
I'm pretty
somewhere
negative on Malcolm.
somewhere around here, I think he's Bishop's worst card significantly. I mean, if it's a
Mhm,
tier list of just Bishop's cards, yeah, okay, he's like down at the bottom. But in this context, like I play him way more than like Deadpool's Katana, and I use him more, and I feel like
mm,
I get more use out of him than that as well.
mm,
And it starts to be around the middle of C tier where I feel like that is where I would like put him minimum. But I
mm.
think just as an ally, even in multiplayer, you can block with someone else with him and stuff like that. I don't know.
That's true.
I think he's. I'm pretty big on Malcolm, so we might have to go somewhere in the middle because I suspect we're not going to agree on this.
Mhm. Well, I would be okay putting Malcolm farther up if you also agree to move Webbed up the list, which is one that I've
Mm,
long looked at as being undervalued here in this list.
if it was me, Webbed Up would just go down to D tier. I'm just gonna say it. That's how I feel about it right
You
now.
are That's crazy. I've been playing Spider-Man recently. Webbed Up is just good. It's just a good card.
It's not, but it's
Um,
it
I,
blocks
I'd be
his
willing
defense
to.
card, which is amazing. It blocks his card draw, which is good. He's just got alter ego suit healing, like one of the best supports in the game, and it contradicts all of that. And it's also overpriced for what it does baseline before all of that. I don't like it. So
But like,
I'm
but like you just said with Malcolm, in a multiplayer game, Webbed Up saves other people. It's not just a solo game where it's blocking your card draw. You might block for someone else.
But it depends on the player order. If anyone has put statuses out there, if anyone has their own defense events they might have liked to use, lose value that way. And if someone's got an alter ego, it can still line up in badly in multiplayer, even if it is better. So I'm
Yeah, but
I'm not gonna negotiate on webbed up. I'm
all
drawing a
right, all
line.
right, all
I
right.
think that's higher than it should go for me. And
Viewers, tell him how wrong he is in the comments. I'd be willing to split the difference on Malcolm. So I put him like middle of D. You put him bottom of B. I'd be willing to put him somewhere in the middle of C as a compromise.
I like some of these cards, so I would be this behind Gamora's sword here below it is kind of like the I could go with that.
Okay.
So it's still
Then
toward
let's put him
the
there, and
D.
then as we put more, we'll kind of see where we land on it.
I feel like that's like a pretty decent spot. Like I look at these, I can rationalize it, except for webbed up. But anyway,
Man, that is a crazy take. That's a
I don't
great.
think
Well,
so.
Depth is just a good card.
I don't think
It's just a
so.
good card.
Mm,
Right? I
mm,
mean,
mm. It's interesting,
yeah.
If we rank the heroes for power, I'm pretty sure I have Spider-Man above you. I need to get you on the less webbed up. It can be good, but in the right situation, it's not like a go-to. So in the scheme of things, it's not going to get rated high by me.
All right.
I think it holds him back in some ways. I think it holds him back if you lean into
No, I mean,
it.
no. Okay. We'll just agree to disagree on that one. That's one of the ones we'll just have to disagree on.
So on to the next one.
You pick the next one.
I'm curious if we're going to be more further apart. The other one we agreed on was Kurt's Chapel. So I'm going to go for that.
Mhm.
And for me, if I do play it, it's probably only because my hand worked out that that was the only kind of efficient way to do it. And if I use it more than once, if I use it more than twice, it's kind of a miracle. So for
Mhm.
me, call this crazy. I think this is minimum similar to Logan's Cabin, but I think it's less
Mhm.
useful. I'm gonna just I've got good things to say about it, which start to move it up. It
Mhm.
works
Mhm.
well with he has a card that lets him get Ultra Ego out of sequence, so you can kind of recover and go back to hero form kind of thing. That is a
Mhm.
thing Nightcrawler can do. We now have the Ready for a Fight card, which lets you go Ultra Ego,
Mhm.
then flip back down, when you get attacked. So, like there are some ways to make the sequencing of this better, but he just doesn't need to recover. And I also feel like I'm always stretched with money for him because you've got to pay for BAMF, and it is good. It's good value, but it restricts what you can do with the rest of your hand. So for
Mhm.
me, this is still it's either bottom of D or F. I know I'm going to take the nice path. I'm going to put it here and see what you think.
Um, I think that's where it's at for me. I think in Boom Guys terms, for me, the F tier is really cards that I just won't play. Like I will pass on them 90+% of the time, right? And
Hmm.
that's where all those land for me. Like I'm
Yeah,
just gonna pass on them. Except ironically, maybe Hulk's because I just played him recently and he is so little thwart that I was
yeah.
still playing it.
It's still bad, but
Um,
you're extorted into having to do it.
you are. Yep, I feel like I'm held for ransom and I like just have to pay 3 for 3.
Yeah.
Um, I might leave Kurt's Chapel there. I might move Logan's Cabin down to the top of F because the more I play Wolverine, I just don't play that cabin, and I don't think that action is very good. Like, and just looking at them in a bubble, the cabin and the chapel side by side, the chapel's just better.
Yeah, I
Like,
agree actually. Let's do
so
it.
you can give out card draw with the chapel, like that's really good. The cabin's just not very good, and I just don't know why that card exists.
I like putting
Um,
some cards back in, but man, I don't know. It's a little awkward.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, I'm happy to go with that.
All right, so for the next one, I'm going to pick our most divisive one, and I'm going to say Magic's Crown.
Okay. I think this is divisive in terms of deciding which one it is, but I feel I've got a good feeling you're going to place it right where I would.
Yeah, I think it was the most divisive insofar as we had the hardest time deciding in the end which one we're going to go with. Um, so I would say, let me just say some nice things here. It is +1 thwart. That's just a solid effect. It makes her really well-rounded 2/2/2, right?
Yep.
And steady can matter, and when it matters it's nice to have. I find it's a situational keyword, kind of like piercing. Like when it matters, then yes, you're really glad you have it, and the rest of the time it's like, well, in a pinch if I need it. I would put this higher up, I think, than our original discussion made us think. I'd probably put this in the C tier, like towards the top. I think it's maybe better than accelerated reflexes.
Ooh. I'm gonna disagree. This is really interesting. I thought you were gonna go
Okay.
like really low with that. I'm thinking this is
No.
too high for it. For me,
Okay.
I play Malcolm a lot more than the Crown. Um,
Interesting.
Even if in the context of their kits, the Crown is not as undesirable, but he just has money, plays Malcolm. I get good effect. Um, so it's difficult, but for me, I definitely like accelerated reflexes more. I feel like
Mm.
for me, we start to get to around like Aurora's Garden and stuff, and I feel like it's kind of in this area down for me.
Like above Malcolm or below?
I would personally, looking at these cards, I mean, some of the C tier cards are just very playable, honestly. Well, I kind of genuinely think I put it like here, so between the Katana and Ant-Man.
I think it just depends on how we're ranking, right? If we're ranking this card in isolation, steady and +1 thwart is like a pretty solid effect.
Hmm.
If we're ranking it in the context of the kit and how often we play it, then yeah, I think it's going to go a little bit lower. I
Hmm.
would probably say I play this even less than oh boy, Ant-Man. I don't play Ant-Man very much.
Ant-Man's good. He's just expensive. It's
He just costs too
yeah.
much. I probably play oh boy. No, I don't play Ant-Man more. Ant-Man costs too much for a hero with a bad economy. I think right there is pretty good.
Cool. Okay, let's go for that. Let's lock it in.
All right, locked in. You're up next.
Okay. Okay, this is going a little bit smoother. The first pick feels like the most divisive so far with Malcolm. Um, let's go ahead and I'm noticing a trend here. We are definitely ranking things a little lower down. For the last quote unquote last wave, wave of the series that we're covering, and they're not going high so far. And I feel like that trend might continue if I
Mm,
grab his Ice Wall
mm-hmm,
because I definitely play it more than the cabin, and sometimes I get good use out of it. What I like about Ice Wall is if you have frostbite, it's reducing the damage you take. It kind of extends the life of Ice Wall,
mm-hmm.
and I usually get 2 blocks out of it. Sometimes 3, sometimes 4. Like especially if you were to play on a standard, because I'm usually slamming my face against expert and some crazy mod sets these days. But it can go really far. So it varies. And for me, I think we get to like above jet boots, but I don't know if it goes higher just because it's so expensive. You can team building exercise it, power about it.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
but
You almost have to.
yeah, but then
Another nice thing I'll say about it is that it does give you a frostbite when it expires. So, like, it puts a frostbite on someone, so that is a nice benefit.
yeah,
And, it can protect the table, not allies, but it can protect other identities.
yeah,
And,
quick strike as
and
well,
it
stuff
has
like that.
yes, and it has the nice effect of you put the damage and then you see how much is on there, right? So,
Hmm.
it can go more than 8,
Yeah,
obviously.
it's kind of absorbs the
Um
overflow.
Right. So, often you want to get it to like 7 and then it's like perfect. Now, let Juggernaut hit for however much. So
Yeah,
it has that. No, but I do think I don't play it that often. It often feels like a card I will play late game when
yeah,
like we're gonna make a push here. Like early game, there's just he has so much setup and he's kind of slow. And
he's
Ice
already
Wall eats so many
defensive.
resources.
Yeah,
Yeah. I find I don't play it very often. I think right around there is good. Um,
nice. I kind
Crisis
of
Interdiction I might drop, but yeah.
I kind of feel like for me there's a divide, like ancestral knowledge and everything above it. I just feel like it's slightly better, and then jet boots and below is like slightly worse. I feel like there's like a little gap there, and
Mhm,
that's where I'm seeing this card. I do like the ice wall for like it can make space for you, right? You're quite a way through the game. I've got these resource generators. Maybe that's the best place to put it. I put it on ice wall. I don't have to worry about defense for like multiple activations now, and that kind of can
mhm.
free Iceman to not to defend and then lose his frostbite. So I can put them where I need to, so my clones and stuff can do stuff. So I like it. I like it. I just don't find myself able to pay for it and maintain tempo. It's kind of the
I
gist
just
of that.
find it's like a worst version of Frozen Solid. Like Frozen Solid is a 3 cost that will stop an attack and then add a frostbite, and like this just feels worse and more expensive. I don't know. Yeah, I don't have a ton of great things to say about it, but this is where we're supposed to say nice things. It's nice that it can defend the table, can defend other people. That's cool. If you're playing solo, it can defend you probably from multiple attacks, which is great. But I don't
Mhm.
play it a lot because it is dumping your entire hand. So,
Yeah. Okay. I think that brings us on to the next card. I think we're both quite happy with that placement.
mm, mhm,
Where are you
mhm.
gonna go? What are you gonna do?
I'm gonna pick Wolverine.
Where's Wolvie going?
I actually think Wolverine is quite good, and
Hmm.
I do play him fairly often when I'm
Okay.
playing Jubilee. Like he doesn't synergize with her kit, but I often find that like she has enough money that I'm getting him out anyway. Uh, I am gonna low key put him at the bottom of A tier
Ooh, an A
because I
tier.
think 3 attack with piercing for a hero that does flip fairly often to take advantage of the shopping spree and maybe recover because she's squishy.
Hmm.
Like he heals a lot. I also flip a lot with her for mutant education to shuffle things back in. Um, I think he's actually really good, and I do agree he's the least synergistic and maybe the least important part of our kit, but I do play him quite a bit. And just
Hmm.
like the same as the aggression Wolverine, he's just good.
Yeah.
Because he's effectively the same. But yeah, I think he's quite a good card.
I think he's the best card we're rating here, if that's not obvious. And I think if I were to change it, I could maybe knock him down like 2 or 3 spots, but no further than that. And if you'd like placed him like a couple up, I could see it as well. I don't know. I think for me, I maybe put him here. I move him down 2 spots. One spot
Mm,
really. But I'm fine with him in A as well. You know what? Yeah. We're near the end now. Crazy,
mm,
crazy hot take for you. I could totally do this.
hmm. Do you want to hear a crazier hot take? I think Synth Suit should move up. Based on all the preparations we've gotten, I think that card has gotten even better with Black Widow recently.
It's the Leo
Um,
Fitz and Gemma Simmons help her like find and pay for it too. I find really helpful.
yes, and
Um,
there's more preparations that just trigger it more often. I think that card is really strong.
yeah,
I could move it up, but I think
I
yeah, right around there probably.
it's
It doesn't
tough.
go up a tier for me.
Yeah,
Um, I don't know about Rogue's Punch. I think that card is just an economy issue. Like she doesn't have a great economy, and so it's hard to pay for. I don't think the card is bad. I just find myself frustrated how expensive it is most of the time. I might put it below
gotcha.
Wolverine. If you want to leave it in A tier, I could go for that, but
Let's
I'd probably
let's let's put it back where it was. It was a crazy idea,
okay.
and we're back here,
It was
and
crazy.
we'll have Wolverine where you put him. I'm happy with that.
Okay,
He's
yeah,
good.
love that.
I suppose I should say good things about him. I mean, basically just said he's good. Well, you said a bit more. I haven't.
Yeah,
um,
well, just talk about him.
Piercing is nice. Healing, on an ally with good attack is nice. You can block with him in an emergency, totally fine. Can thwart with him in an emergency, totally fine.
Mhm.
X-Men can trigger Utopia, even if it's not for you. It could be someone else at the table who defended or something. There's means to use that. Just an X-Men ally is just inherently valuable. So there you go.
He's just good.
He is just good. And that leaves one final card to rank.
All right.
Asteroid M. Now, in theory, canonically kind of thing, this should be orbiting above all the other cards, right? This should be like right at the tippity top kind of thing. But
Mm.
in actuality, I don't like this card, and you like it more than me, so you might have to convince me to move it up. For me, this feels right around jet boots is how I feel about this. Like, if I can afford it, I don't have better to do. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll get some value out of it, but it's not important to me, and I will pass on it all the time, kind of thing. Like often. So this is. Mm, I'm gonna drop it here. Tell me what you think. So it's like pretty high up in D tier, just above the middle.
No, I think that's right. I think that's where it belongs. Just I didn't pick it, but I still don't think it's a great card.
Mm,
I would have rated the other ones maybe lower, maybe not, just depending on how I'm feeling in the day. My opinions can change. Um,
what?
I know, wild, but I think that's a good spot for it.
Cool.
Um, but then, how are you feeling about the overall list here?
I mean, I'm very picky and very detail oriented, and my videos like take hours and stuff. And this is a list we both made. So there are things on here I'm not happy with, but as a general thing, I am happy with it, if that makes sense. And it's been fun
Mm,
to do this together and see the different opinions.
mm-hmm.
Um, so I think as a whole, I'm actually really pleased with it. I'm pleased that it isn't, just my opinion, because I would have considered that a failure of, the whole premise of the series. It's a kind
Mm.
of cooperative, semi-competitive in some way, where we have to debate them, but really it's a cooperative effort. So we've got a really fun list here. And I think the general gist of it holds up very well.
I think one of the things I find interesting here is that I think early on I predicted that later cards were just going to be higher up the list, and that didn't end up being the case.
No.
But I think overall, if you look at the extremes, right? If we're looking at this is a bell curve, roughly. If you're looking at the S and the F tier, I think you largely find that a hero's worst card correlates fairly strongly with how overall strong the hero is, right? At the bottom, we have She-Hulk, Hulk, Valkyrie, right?
Yeah.
Those are just bad. Now, there's
Mhm.
some exceptions there. It's not all the same. Ironheart is not a bad hero, but her card is there. And at the top, it's the same thing, right? Like overall, you have Spider Ham, Scarlet Witch, Angel. Like those are all very strong heroes. Colossus is pretty strong
Mm.
too. But you also have Hawkeye at the top of A tier. So that's interesting, right? Like,
Mm,
but I think overall, like the extremes kind of fit. Like, who are the strongest characters, and their worst cards are just going to be better because, of course, they are. Like, all their cards are better, right? So Spider Ham has a
yeah.
card that I don't think is very good, and we agreed it's his worst, but it's the second best card that we rated among all the worst cards. And we did Valkyrie is not very strong, and well, surprise, surprise, there she is at the very bottom.
Yeah, with a card that's almost unplayable.
Yeah,
But
that's
that's a
just a really
different.
interesting
Yeah.
thing we did here.
Mm,
And wrapping up here, we should say for now, this is the end. This series may continue. You are at the time of recording at some point heading off into retirement. We don't know when, but if this continues, it will continue on my channel. But we're also going to take a deliberate break from it. For me especially, I really want time and I want context from that time with these heroes, and I like rating weakest cards as we go back. The newest ones are too fresh. I want them to develop a little bit more, see them in more builds, see them with more of the card pool over time to really feel like I can assess them properly, and
mhm.
then probably still pick something wild like Frostbiter into the connection to the world line. So,
Bucky's
you know,
cybernetic arm.
Bucky's arm, the worst card.
Uh,
Yeah. The Iliad, just a terrible card.
Useless.
Um, yeah. So we'll take a break, and then it will maybe come back at some point, but it'll look different.
Yeah, I've really appreciated doing this series though, and I think also if we went back and redid this series, I think both of us would pick different cards than we had
Mm,
done already here, just because our opinions have changed. Sometimes on the day the opinion changes when it's close, and also new
yeah.
cards come out, add new context, so on and so forth. So I don't think this list is I wouldn't call this definitively all the worst cards for every hero, but for our journey, that's what it has been.
Yeah.
And it's been over many months, and you guys really like this series, and I'm very grateful for that. It's always fun. People love to join in like the comments in my Discord server. We have a channel there specifically for it. So if you've got opinions on this, feel free to come and hop in and tell us how wrong we are.
Yeah.
But
This
ultimately,
generates a lot of discussion.
but that's what I think it's best for. Like, yeah, we're trying to talk up the worst quote unquote cards, but really we're discussing the heroes and we're opening the discussion. How you use different cards in different ways. And I feel like in that
Yeah.
regard, it's been very successful. Before we go, do we want to change the order of anything? Or are we happy putting Cosmic
Mm.
Ward at the top here? Is Cosmic Ward the winner?
Cosmic Ward, the best worst card.
I
Um,
feel like this is very
hmm.
difficult to suddenly decide because they're all so different. They're used in different ways.
Boy,
Um,
we have two alter egos, one ally, a kind of a defense upgrade, I guess, and then a cancellation. I mean,
uh,
canceling a treachery is just good. My big argument against it, of course, was that you can't control which one you're
mm.
canceling, and your counter argument was that canceling any of them is just good. True.
There are exceptions, but
Um,
yeah, I'm gonna take a crazy opinion. I think just because of its consistency, its ability to stop people losing games, and its multiplayer to stop different characters, what if we put Magic Shield up here and give one to
mm,
Scarlet Witch? So the one Mystic usurps another.
mm,
That's what I'm feeling.
I don't, I don't hate it. Um, I've been playing a ton of Colossus recently, and I've come around on the his alter ego ability too because I flipped down a lot.
Yeah, nice.
Um,
You
Ready
had
for
it
a
here,
fight just
guys.
made him so good. Yeah,
Just flipping form. It's become Boom Guy's new approach to life. And I think if we take anything away from this series, I'm going to be grateful about
it
that.
turns out after 5 years, I've discovered that the hero cards are double sided. You can flip down.
That's crazy. How often?
Yeah, wild. There's a whole new avenue opened up for me. No, I think I'm pretty happy with this where this ended up.
Let's go for it then.
I think both of us could go through and probably pick a few here and there, up a spot, down a spot, whipped up.
Yeah, down a few
um,
spots. You're right. Yep.
and
Good. Good call.
but overall, and I think the great thing about these things is that there are times when they're just really good. I played a bunch of Gamora recently, testing some decks, and you get her sword out on turn one. That thing does so
Yeah.
much damage, and it's so good. But mid to late game, I'm like, it's not really worth it anymore. So there's situational cards, and I think this has been a really fun journey. I've really enjoyed this series a lot. So yeah, hopefully people have enjoyed watching it. I do think, I don't know how it relates to your other stuff, but I feel like it generates a ton of discussion on your Discord server. It has its own channel, so I think
Hmm.
it does people, and they really love predicting. So we've taken that away from people now. There's no more ways. I guess they can predict wave 9 and beyond.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, no, it's been good. I'd love it if you guys, want to share any opinions, any comments, anything like that. Be great. But yeah, it's just been so fascinating to look at these cards. I think we're going to wrap it up here. Boom Guy, I want to say thank you. I think you came up with like the initial idea for this. Maybe I like fleshed it out slightly, and then like it all came together in a great way. But I think the core idea for this, came from you, which is really awesome. And you joined me for the whole thing on my channel. So I want to say a big thank you for that. And you've helped me with the
yeah.
intros because I hate video intros. It's a whole thing
Mhm.
we mention every time we go to start recording. So all these little
Yeah.
things and just
No,
like the whole thing. So yeah, I appreciate
it's
that.
been a ton of fun. I always like coming up with good ideas and new ideas. Not always good, but it was good. It floated this to you, and we chatted about it, and we kind of came up with something that we thought was really fun. And it's been really good to get together. And it's been almost a year now, closing in on a year that it took us to do this. So this is quite a commitment.
Yeah, yeah,
It's been fun. So thanks for having me, and thanks for everybody who watched and followed along and guessed what we were gonna pick. It's always been fun to see people guessing about the next episode when one is done, and I haven't even figured it out yet. And they're like, "Oh, I bet he's gonna pick this," and I'm like, "Well, I haven't even looked at him yet." But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So thanks for having me.
yeah. It's been really good. And again, thank you to the viewers. And maybe see you in the next one somewhere in the future. But until then, enjoy Marvel Champions and see you around.
Bye, everybody.